C. Frank. I don't know if that's intentional or if it's just Frank. Can I call you C? I don't know. But we've got C. Frank here calling in all the way from the frozen hellscape of Canada, who is a theist who says there are reasons to believe in God. Also, pronoun listed as male. That's not a pronoun, but whatever. C. Frank, you are on the line with Forrest and Darante. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Awesome.
I'm doing really well. I'm doing really well. I can hear you just fine. You know male isn't a pronoun, right?
I did not know that.
Yes. Male is an adjective or a noun, but not a pronoun. But that's okay. Would you prefer to be referred to as he, him?
Sure, that's fine.
All right, he, him pronouns for C. Mike. Or C. Frank. So tell us, you say there are reasons to believe in God. Which God do you believe in?
I believe in the Christian God.
Ooh.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Darante, do you have any intro questions? Because I have a couple that I want to just know to be safe.
Yeah. Okay. So what is my and I guess it's just the biggest question is, why do you believe in the Christian God?
Mm-hmm.
I believe in a creator, and I believe that if God were real, he would have made some effort to reveal himself to us. And I think that Jesus Christ is the best example of this that we have out of all the religions. So I think that Jesus Christ is most likely to be God.
All right.
Okay.
So, see, Frank, I do want you to understand that none of that was evidentiary. All of that was, I just believe this because I heard a story that I liked. Do you realize that's what you just said? That I heard this story that I liked, and that's true for me now. Do you realize that's what you just said to us?
I guess that's partially true.
Yikes. All right.
And that's fine, because he did just ask, why do you believe? But like, it's important to point out that, like, if that's where you're coming in with, then like, it kind of leaves us on fuzzy ground, especially when you're saying like, Jesus is the most likely to be God out of all the other options. It compels me that my immediate follow-up question is, I'm going to be like, what other options have you explored, and how seriously have you explored them?
Well, I think that God exists based on science, because of
that wasn't my question.
Okay,
that's not what I asked. That's not what I asked you.
Okay. Well, repeat your question.
Okay. Well, all right. So that tells me you may not have been listening, and that's rude. But like, let me try again. It's just like, you said that Jesus is the most likely God out of all these other options. How seriously have you explored the other options, and what other options have you explored?
Well, I've looked up the beliefs of other religions, like the Greek gods, and it just seems kind of absurd to me. Like, the chief Greek god was like having sex with animals and stuff like that, and they have gods for like agriculture and childbirth and stuff like that. It just seems kind of strange to me. That doesn't seem.
Zeus had sex with a lot of people too, as the god of the Bible also had sex with a person.
Wait, say that again.
I said Zeus had sex with humans, as the god of the Bible did as well. So, like, what I don't understand is, like, you're drawing this line. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think in one of the stories, he took the form of an animal, and he had sex with a woman. He raped a woman as an animal.
Yeah, well, even God did that as a person to Mary.
Yeah, I was gonna say even that's exactly what I was going. Like, that's
the God of the Bible.
The story of Mary,
the God of the Bible didn't. Well, the God of the Bible didn't have intercourse.
But he did impregnate somebody large, like, in a way that would not have possibly been consensual, which sucks. But that's not the point. That's neither here nor there. The point is, like, you're drawing this line at, like, you're bringing up like this polytheistic situation. You're like, it's just absurd to me because, like, this is a different God for like agriculture and pregnancy and all these different things. And that's like monotheism as far as I remember, I'm not a scholar of religion. Darante might actually be able to speak to this better than I could. But like monotheism, as far as I remember, started with Judaism, and that's why Christianity split off of that, and then Islam and Mormonism and whatever else split off of Christianity. And so it sounds to me like you're in this heuristic, you're in this framework that you like, and you're judging other religions by your framework of what you consider absurd, without recognizing that what you're saying is also pretty absurd by any other framework. Can I ask you, before you respond, you're welcome to respond to what I said, but I also want to ask, just as a clarifying question, were you raised Christian?
I was not. I was atheist for most of my life.
Were you raised in Canada?
Yes.
Okay. Was your family Christian?
No. I think my mom believed. My dad was atheist.
Okay, so so you were around Christianity, you grew up around Christianity. There were Christian symbols all around you at all times. There are churches in your wherever you grew up. Like, your Christianity is still the dominant religion of the world that you live in the slice of the world that you live in at most. And so that's kind of how propaganda works, is that it's not necessarily just telling you something over and over until you believe it's true. It's that it's taking up space in your mind. And it sounds to me like you are just used to, having grown up around Christianity, you're used to it sounding not crazy. So that way, when you now judge other religions by the lens of Christianity, you're able to say, oh, well, they have all these gods and the gods having sex with a bunch of people, and that's all nuts. And it's no weirder than anything in the Bible by a long shot. You know what I mean?
I mean, I kind of see where you're coming from a little bit, but I think it's kind of, I don't think it'd be necessary to have gods for things like war, agriculture, wisdom, stuff like that. I don't know why you would need separate gods.
You have that. You have that. They just all have the same name.
See, Frank, can I ask you, why didn't you feel the need to compare God of the Christian Bible with Allah of Islam? Why would you choose to compare the Christian God against the God that nobody by far and large worships today, as opposed to comparing the Christian God with one of the second largest religions in the United States on the planet? So honestly, to me, to compare Christianity to Greek mythology, it just seems disingenuous to begin with, because by far and large, we do not have an issue on this planet where anybody considers Zeus a realistic counterpart of a religious god. But there are several billion people who worship Allah. So my question would be, what would be your differentiation between Yahweh and Allah? Because I have a sneaky suspicion you'd have a hard time drawing that line.
I think in Islam, they believe that in paradise, you'll get like 96 or 70 some virgins. And to me, that sounds like sex slavery. I don't think that's something that God would actually allow. To me,
okay, I got to ask you a question there. I'm so glad you said that, C. Frank. How is heaven not regular slavery? How is heaven not regular slavery? So is your problem just sex slavery?
Question than I had.
So if it's just sex, it's bad. But regular slavery, it's okay. If I forced you to be here, if you obey me, you die forever. But if you just hear and it's not sex, it's okay slavery. But now if it's sex slavery, it's bad. See, Frank, do you see the mess hole you just walked yourself into?
I have a totally different huge issue with what you said. I have a totally different huge issue. Like the 76 virgins things, as far as I know, that's a pretty niche situation in Islam, but I don't know for sure. But let's say that it is ubiquitous. What you're going to say that God wouldn't be cool with sex slavery? The God of the Bible is very cool with sex slavery. It condones it quite a bit. So how is it different? Like, when you have, Iron Age Palestine, and it's like, yeah, no, it's okay if you slaughter the civilization and keep all the virgin girls for yourself, or if you rape a virgin, you can pay her father however much silver, and then she's your property, and like all this other stuff. How is that different than when you go to the theme park in the sky? I guess there just has to be 76 times more women than there are men in the world that they have to all die. How is there a difference there, C. Frank?
I don't think Yeah, I don't know that that's true, but
About the God of the Bible condoning slavery?
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
damn. Then you haven't read the Bible, bruh.
Yeah, the Bible is a pro-slavery book front to back, sex slavery included.
Yes. I mean, that's kind of a
It's
parable of the
very-
10 virgins.
Yes. Are you talking about dueling vaginas? That's one of my favorite stories.
Why would you consider it sex slavery in the Bible?
Because you are literally buying and selling people as property, and it's very emphatic that they must be virgins, and it's kind of implied.
But you have to marry them, and you only have one wife, and you're married to her. I don't see that as equal to being.
Have you never read the story of David or Solomon?
Yes.
And you think they only had one wife?
Solomon definitely had a lot of wives. I don't know that they were sex slaves. They were probably.
I mean, what would you call it after the first wife? Do you remember the story of Ruth?
If he had as many wives as the Bible says he has, I doubt they were having much sex, because he would have to have sex with, like, I don't know, 3 girls a day.
That's the whole point of that's the whole point of a harem. See, but the issue is that, like, the main problem is that, like, whatever you want to label this as, we're talking about marriage not as a social construct the way we see it today, where it's like this life partnership. This is marriage as a form of socioeconomic imposement of power. Like, this is a property situation. The Bible is very anti-feminist as well as it is pro-slavery. It is very anti-woman, and it's very clear that women are property when they are in a marriage. You are buying a woman to act as this maidservant to you. And so, like, especially having lots of them, especially with concubines, which are like a frequent thing, like, even if we get away from sex slavery, like, you can agree that the Bible is pro-slavery in general, right?
I'd hope so.
Well, I will answer that question, but I want to say that God doesn't condone having multiple wives. I think Solomon did that, but that's not something that God allows. I think God says somewhere in the Bible that you're not supposed to multiply your wives. I think that's
not a scripture at all. That's not a scripture at all.
No, God does say you're not to multiply your wives.
Even if I believe you. Okay.
That's not
See, Frank, even if I believe you, I can tell you just in terms of regular slavery, where women have different rules than men do. And so even if you want to take sex slavery out of it, it's still misogynistic, it's still patriarchal, and it's still pro-slavery. Like, cover to cover, the Bible is pro-slavery book.
Where does the Bible condone sex slavery?
No, I said even outside of sex slavery. We're talking about just slavery in general, like chattel slavery.
I can answer that question for him. I can answer. He says, when does the Bible?
I just don't want to get
the Bible condone sex slavery? When Abraham takes Hagar as a sex slave, when God commands the children of Israel to take the people of Canaanite and their daughters as sex slaves. Like, bruh, you cannot ask these questions if you've not actually read the book. Like, that's the like, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to get aggravated as fuck every time I hear you or somebody like this say some shit like this, because the only thing you're demonstrating is that you've never freaking read the book. It's clearly
Abraham never took
While you were
Hagar
talking, I went ahead and I just pulled up my own note here on this is Exodus 21, verse 7. When a man sells his daughter as a slave, she will not be freed at the end of 6 years as the men are. If she does not satisfy her owner, she must allow her to be bought back again. He is not allowed to sell her to foreigners and blah, blah. It goes on and on about how to sell your daughter and how she must satisfy her owner. Now, you can take that and twist it and say, well, they meant like satisfy in terms of work. Like, she's doing work this is chattel slavery, not necessarily sex slavery. If that's the hill you want to die on, fine. But at the end of the day, what I'm trying to get across here is that if we want to split hairs and say this isn't really sex slavery, you can't get around the fact that it is slavery. Like, no matter what, the Bible is pro-slavery. Can we agree on that, C. Frank?
It definitely allows slavery.
No, doesn't allow. God commands it. God condones and commands and gives explicit instructions on how to own slaves.
Thus saith the Lord.
He
Yes,
tells
he
you
does.
where to buy them from. He tells you how to beat them. He tells you that they are your property to pass down to your children. He tells you how Hebrew slaves are to be treated differently than non-Hebrew slaves, and how to trick Hebrew slaves into being treated as non-Hebrew slaves. One of those involves women, which are never to be treated as non-Hebrew as Hebrew slaves, no matter what. They are just slaves permanently forever. So, like, the God of the Bible is into slavery. The God of the Bible is pro-slavery. That we should all be able to square that, right? We're cool on that.
Yeah. Do you know what Jesus said about slavery or about slaves?
He
Not
didn't.
shit.
Nothing. Not a thing.
He
Yeah,
did.
not a lot.
He said,
No, he didn't.
your servant. He said, your servant is greater than you. The least on earth is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven.
That word is doulos, sir.
So yeah, and also, see, Frank, even if I agreed with the interpretation you're drawing here, what would be the more moral and appropriate thing for the greatest human who ever lived to say? Would it be treat your slaves well or don't have fucking slaves? What should Jesus have said?
I think anything that happens to somebody on earth is redeemable in paradise. So I don't think that.
Well, that's just lazy thinking.
Because you have no evidence
like,
of paradise yet. Damn.
Yeah, and that also sucks, because then you've just completely gotten rid of the entire concept of sin, the 10 commandments, any commandment. If you do anything, it doesn't matter. You can rape, murder, enslave, commit genocide. You can break any of God's commandments. You can do whatever you want because it's redeemable in paradise, right? So there is no consequence for anything now, because anything that happens on earth is redeemable in paradise. That negates the entire purpose of God's testing us.
No, you can't rape or murder. I said being a slave is redeemable in paradise, because Jesus said the least on earth is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven.
Why the fuck would I want to be redeemed in paradise if I'm a slave on earth?
Your servant.
Fuck you, C. Frank. Don't do that shit.
Don't do
that shit. No, stop that.
You said being a slave is redeemable in paradise. Is owning slaves redeemable in paradise?
According to the Bible, you can own slaves and go to paradise. Yeah.
So then, what's the fucking point, man? Like, what's the point? This God, if this God is real, is clearly not a good person, right? This God has a theme park in the sky, and you get to get tickets for free, even if you own human beings as farming equipment. Why do we care about this God?
I don't know who else. Well, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either.
It's not boding well.
The thing is, man, there's no reason to believe in this God. There's no evidence for it. There's no reason to believe it. And if it is real, if it is actually true, if this God does exist, then he's a monster. And so, like, as we just said to the last caller, I don't know if you heard it.
I wouldn't say Jesus is a monster. No way.
I would.
Jesus, so first of all, I would, because Jesus, first of all, is a continuation of God. And also, all that stuff in the Old Testament about rape, murder, genocide, slavery, you name it, all the horrific, genuinely unjustifiable, unexcusable, horrific bullshit that God does in the Old Testament and lays down as law, Jesus says, I come not to change the law, but to fulfill it. Jesus says, not a jot or a tittle of the law shall change until all things come to pass in the end of the age. Jesus says that no one can truly follow me unless they hate their mother and father. Jesus says, any man who disagrees with me and does not want me to be their king, bring him before me and kill him before me. Jesus says, I come bringing not peace, but a sword. Jesus is very much the same character as the God of the Old Testament. He only brings in this new law of love when it's convenient. And it's also important to point out that as nice as his whole love your enemy, love your neighbor, turn the other cheek shit is, it is only with Jesus that we also get the concept of hell. Eternal torture and fire comes on the back end of infinite unconditional love. So yeah, I would call Jesus a monster too.
I would just like to add to that love your neighbor is not the same fucking thing as love everybody. So you tell me which one is greater. Like there's no way that this guy is as quintessential good as you think he is when his definition of love could only go to a neighbor. Where's the love everybody? And then, mind you, I remind people that Jesus physically assaulted people. Jesus literally praised the poor for giving their last to the temple. Like, this is the shit that Jesus did. He looked at the widow with the 2 mites and said, thank you for giving your last little bit. No, you show me the goodness in this character.
She would be laying up treasure in paradise, according to the Bible.
Paradise doesn't exist, bro. You'd have to prove that paradise exists first. Otherwise, you're just pimping a scam, bro. You're just pimping a scam. That was 2,000 years ago. We have no evidence of paradise since then. It's a 2,000-year-old lie. You know, that's just me being funny, but it is what it is.
It certainly is. It certainly is. Anyway, I would love for Frank, I would love for you to address what we just said in terms of like the character of Jesus being a continuation of the God of the entire Bible, especially if you're one of those that believes that Jesus and God are the same person in 2 persons. Like, at the end of the day, the God of the Bible is a monster, and Jesus is a part of that monstrous nature. Would you agree with that, or you think that we're missing something?
I would definitely disagree with that. Why? I don't agree with that, no.
Why?
I don't agree that he's a monster, no.
Why?
I think that if I just look at the character of Jesus, he did nothing wrong.
That means you never read the book, bro. I can't take you I can't take you seriously.
Yeah. He did nothing wrong except for when he told everyone to sell everything they own and only follow him, which, if there's no heaven, is a big deal. He did nothing wrong except for when he said, render unto Caesar's what Caesar's, and played into the whole, imperialism and bullshit when he could have just continued standing up to an oppressive tyrannical empire. He did nothing wrong except for when he crafted a whip to go beat the shit out of people in a temple for misusing his holy ground the way he wanted. He fucking set a tree on fire because it didn't have enough fruit for him. He was a megalomaniacal dickhole. And like, at no point was he this lamb that people like to paint him as, especially considering the fact that he was, as I said, a continuation of the God of the Old Testament, as he himself said. He never claimed to be God, but he said that he was the upholding the law.
He did claim to be God, but he did have a.
Where did Jesus claim to be God?
See, Frank doesn't know anything about the Bible. What the fuck is this?
Jesus never claimed to be God.
He says, "I and the Father are one." I and the Father are one. Yeah, he says that.
He also says, "I pray that you all be one." So does that mean we're all God, Frank?
Where does he say that at?
Oh, damn. So the same book you were reading where you saw the one thing, you didn't read far enough to see the other thing? Like, do you see what you're doing, Frank? You're just literally randomly sparking random shit. You literally, and I'm trying not to be mean, but you literally don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And I'm saying that from 2 decades of preaching experience. And so I'm like, if you're being genuine, study the stuff that you're talking about first so that we can have a conversation that we can all engage in. Because I'm going to be honest with you, as an intellect, I am fucking offended at having this conversation with you at this moment. Because you're not even trying. You're not being honest. You're not being genuine. You don't have a true faith. You're not actually out here living in a way that you believe the Lord is real. You're just saying some shit to jerk yourself off in the room. And this shit is pathetic, man. Like, damn it. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to go that hard, but it is what it is. Like, man, nothing you've said has been accurate. I'm disappointed, Forrest. I'm disappointed.
It's okay.
I wanted a good conversation.
It sucks, and I hope you understand. I hope you understand, C. Frank, that like the issue here is that the reason why my co-host is so upset, and the reason why I'm pretty disappointed too, is because like this is stuff that people really strongly believe, and it affects their lives and it affects other people's lives as well. And when you come into it, giving us this stuff that you're giving us here, where it's just empty, like. It blows that we as atheists are taking this more seriously than you seem to. You know what I mean? See, Frank, if your phone is asleep, we can't hear you. I see you're calling in the web caller. You need to tap your phone and make sure it's awake. Otherwise, we can't hear a word you're saying.
Hello? Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Hello?
So that's
Okay.
like just if you would
Yeah.
respond to what we just said, like it sucks that we're taking this more seriously than you is where we left it off. That's where we were hoping to get a response from you.
Oh, well, I thought you asked me where he claimed to be God, and I gave you the verse. And there's more verses where he says, before Abraham was, I am, which says that he pre-existed before Abraham. He says he's the Lord of the Sabbath. He says, I am the Alpha and Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end.
Right.
All of these are claims to be God.
No,
so
they're not.
So people, they're not. But like, here's the thing. Biblical scholars disagree with you. Historians disagree with you. Atheists who have read the Bible, the people who have actually read this book disagree with you. But let's say it's true, right? Let's just entertain the notion for a minute. Let's say that he said he was God. That furthers into my point that I was making, which is that the God of the Bible is an evil motherfucker. And if Jesus claims to be the same guy, then Jesus is held equally responsible in my mind. You have painted Jesus as more of a monster if he is indeed the same thing as God. If these two are the same creature in different persons, as the whole Trinitarian belief, then he's worse than what I was painting. I was painting him as a failed apocalyptic preacher who believed in some awful shit. You are now painting him as the same dude who I think it's in Kings, I can find the chapter if you'd like, where he fucking set some kids on fire for putting the wrong incense in an incense burner, and then threatened the kids' parents. He threatened the kids' parents to not grieve the loss of their children, otherwise he would kill them and their community too. That's what God did. And if Jesus is God, then Jesus is fucking evil.
I think he means business. I mean, that's what I take from that.
Him.
He just means business.
So fuck him. This is the God who drowned every creature on earth because he regretted making us? Fuck off.
Yikes.
If this God is real, he's evil. So it's good thing that there's no excuse to there's no reason to believe he exists.
The reason he gave for the flood was because the world was filled with evil. Everybody on earth was corrupted and
the reason he gave for the flood was that the reason he gave for the flood was that he regretted making humans. But also what Darante said is very important, including the babies, the infants. Were they also evil?
I don't think they could be,
but
they still drowned, right?
Evil.
Also, why did the gophers and giraffes have to drown as well? And why didn't the whales? How sinless are dolphins in a way that they get to be preserved, but fucking like sloths don't? Like, what's that all about,
drug addicts, by the way. Dolphins are fucking drug addicts. I just want everybody
to know. If anything, dolphins deserve punishment more, if anything. Like, but that's neither here nor there. Like, the point is, this God, like, first of all, this God claims to be all-knowing, right? And yet somehow this all-knowing creature can experience regret. That doesn't make any logical sense. Then because he regrets making humans, he drowns every single person and every other thing that can't breathe salt water, breathe in salt water. All of them. They're all drowned because he fucked up and regrets his fuck up. That's a stupid, childish tantrum thing to do. That's not a divine wisdom. That's a child throwing a temper tantrum and drowning his bath toys. If this God is real, he is evil. It's a good thing he isn't fucking real.
Yes.
Okay, why don't you think God is real?
Great question.
No evidence.
Because there's simply no evidence for it. There's no use for it. There's no good reason to believe in this thing. Ignorance isn't evidence. So saying we don't know where XYZ thing came from doesn't solve anything. We have to have positive evidence of this thing's existence, and we just simply don't.
Okay. What do you think created the universe?
So again, I can go on about the Big Bang and how it works, but ignorance isn't evidence. Even if I did not have an answer for that, just saying I don't know where the universe comes from doesn't mean that you get to then superimpose a magical explanation, right? You can just say, I don't know.
It's not magical.
We have plenty of evidence for the Big Bang, right? We know a tremendous amount about the Big Bang. We don't know what came before the Big Bang because we don't know what that means. What does before the Big Bang even mean? That what is before time starts? That doesn't make any sense. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if that's even a question that can be asked. But the issue here
can I ask you
is
a question?
Yeah, you go ahead. I'll talk about something else here in a minute.
It's just a very simple question. Is why do you feel like you need to pretend to have answers that you don't actually have? Why is that important for you?
I didn't know that's what I was doing. But
I mean, well, you just asked, well, how do we explain creation? So my question to you would be, well, how do you explain creation? And not how did your preacher tell you how creation happened? My question would be, how did you discover that creation happened?
So if the universe was created,
the only answer
then everything
you could get is you don't know. Like, that's what I'm trying to help you realize right now.
Yeah.
Is the only honest answer you could give is that you don't know, because you may not be smart enough to know this yet, but we know that any answer you're going to give is going to be absolute bullshit right now. You understand that?
Let him give one. Let him give one. Let's see. Let's test the hypothesis. Tell us where how do you know the origin of the universe?
Well, if everything came from a primary source of creation, like the universe, everything that exists and that was ever created, including the universe and whatever else was created, if it all came from a primary source, like a singular source, like a singularity, and if that primary source was conscious, it would be God. And if you think of the properties that this primary source would have, it would have the property of being able to create everything in existence, and it would be infinite because space is infinite.
So the issue, see, Frank, is the word if. The word if did all the heavy lifting for you there. If the world, the universe came from this singularity, and if something with the consciousness made it, well, how do you know it did? Maybe something with consciousness didn't make it. Maybe nothing made it. And if you do say,
it has the property.
Sorry, go ahead.
It has the property of being able to create everything in existence. So if a housefly can have the necessary traits for consciousness, I don't see why the primary source of all of creation would not have the necessary traits for consciousness. That just seems unlikely to me.
What is more abundant? What is more abundant in the universe? See, Frank, houseflies or rocks?
Rocks.
Right, rocks. And do rocks have the necessary traits for consciousness?
Well, that doesn't really. But
no. So why would you then say, well, here's this thing that seems to have some consciousness, therefore the creator of the universe must have. Clearly, if the creator of the universe made everything, he made a whole fuck of a lot more rocks than conscious things. And so, it makes a lot more sense.
We don't know what all he created. We don't know everything he created. All we see is this.
We don't. But we also don't know that there's a creator. See, that's the thing, man. That's what's so frustrating for us on this side of the call right now, is that I can sit here and lay out the evidence for the Big Bang. I can explain the recession rate of galaxies. I can explain a little bit about cosmological redshift. I can explain a little bit about cosmic microwave background radiation. I can explain a little bit about what we know about the conditions of the early universe, stuff that I picked up from my physics education. Well, I'm not a physicist, I'm a biologist, but I have a little physics background. I can talk a little bit about it and I can explain it. But again, as I said earlier, even if I knew none of it, ignorance isn't evidence. I would be left in the exact same place where I just would eventually have to say, I don't know. And I'm willing to sit here and be honest and say, I don't know. I don't know where the universe came from at the end of the day. I don't know what started this whole thing. If there is anything that started this whole thing, I don't know. And you are taking this stance where you're not only saying you know what started the universe, you're saying it's a guy. and you know the guy, and you know the guy's name, and he's you know it's this guy, and you're talking to me, and I'm sitting here saying, listen, we have these models, we have this math, we have this incredible spectroscopy, we have all this understanding, we have all this data, we know stuff about this, and we know where things came from, and there's a point where we lose understanding, and we're just going to have to try to figure it out. And you're saying, do you really think it's that, or do you think it's the fucking space wizard? Because if you ask me, I think it's this guy in space, and he doesn't want you to masturbate, and he's cool with slavery, but not sex slavery, except for when he is. And you have all this shit that you know about this guy. You know the guy's name. You know the guy wants you to eat pork or shellfish. You know whether the guy wants you to wear clothing and mix fabrics. You know what holes you're allowed to fuck because the guy said so. You know all these things about this guy who did this stuff. Meanwhile, I'm just saying, dude, I'm not 100% sure. I'm trying to figure it out. How are you cool with this massive leap of imagination to say, I don't know, therefore it's the fucking magic space guy?
I don't think God is a guy or a space wizard or I think he can manifest as a human in human form. I think Jesus was God in human form, but I don't think
missing the point like crazy. I don't think you are missing the point like crazy.
That is solely a space wizard. What do you think?
You are missing the point like curious. Whoa. Yeah, where does God live, and how do you know?
I don't know where God lives, I guess.
Frank, that is the
do
most
you
honest
know that
answer
there's a
you've given
God
all night.
That's it. I don't know where God lives. Now, next question. Do you know that there's a God at all?
With 100% certainty, I cannot say.
With any certainty.
I do.
Because I'm a scientist. I don't know anything with 100% certainty either.
Well, I feel that the primary source of all of creation would have the necessary traits for consciousness. And I see evidence of this with
I didn't ask you what you feel. I didn't ask you what you feel. I asked you what you know. Do you know that there's a God at all? In any percentage of certainty, do you have any strong reason to believe that there is a God?
Yes, for the reasons I gave, and plus the universe seems to be designed for life.
Then let me ask you this, see, Frank. So first of all, no, it's not. But second of all, let me ask you this. Who created God then? Because God seems to have some sort of consciousness. So it's clearly something with consciousness made him, right?
No, God precedes everything. He is the first. He's the initial cause.
So then if you're allowed to say that, then I'm allowed to say that the universe is completely naturalistic and it precedes everything, and it means the same nothing. Because neither of us have any evidence for the base root of that, because we don't know. And I'm willing to sit here and say, I don't fucking know. And you're not. Nope. You're not willing to say you don't know. You say, I don't know, therefore it's this guy. And I know the guy's name. And I know the guy wants slaves.
Yep.
No, I don't know with 100% certainty, but the universe does seem to be designed for life. With the fine-tuning
let me stop you there. Let me stop you there. Okay, you say the universe seems to be designed for life. Damn it, Frank, stop fucking pretending and lying, okay? You live on one planet. You live on one planet in a universe of trillions of planets, and you have no evidence of life on any other of those planets. And yet you sit here and have the fucking audacity to say the universe seems to be designed towards life. Fuck you, Frank. At this moment, you're not being serious. I have no respect for you. Like, holy fucking shit. Please hang up this phone because you are wasting my fucking time.
The fact that there's any life at all is kind of remarkable.
That's not how that works.
No, it doesn't.
95% of the universe we don't even have access to. So literally 95% of what you're saying, 95% of it, you're not even aware of what you're able to speak to. So please just stop while you're ahead.
And furthermore, you talk about
ignorance up there.
And you're talking about life existing at all is this miraculous thing. No, it super isn't. Because what we know so far about abiogenesis is that it is insanely natural. Like, we know where the stuff, So there's 4 major macromolecules make up life. We know the stuff that makes them and the stuff that makes that. And we know that all of those pieces not only self-assemble, but self-polymerize in naturalistic ways. We know that the stuff that makes life combines naturally, forms naturally, does the stuff that happens in life naturally. When we study life itself, it obeys all the same laws of chemistry and physics as everywhere else. There is nothing supernatural about life, and there doesn't appear to be anything supernatural about the beginning of life either. And the fact that life got started on this planet within a few, like 100,000 years of the end of the Hadean, if not into the Hadean potentially, means that it is extremely easy for this to happen. And all you're doing is you're looking at this Earth as if it's this fucking special little jewel that solidifies this monster in the sky that you believe in, and it just doesn't. Man, I'd be willing to go on further with you, but it sounds like my co-host is thoroughly over you, and because you're just not being serious. So what I would encourage you to do is sorry, go ahead.
Well, if you think of what life is literally matter becoming self-aware of its own existence. That just doesn't happen by random chance. You can't.
That's not true.
Yeah,
that's not true. Some life does that. Some life does that. Not all life does that. Again, you are putting this very anthropocentric, not anthropocentric. You are putting this very anthropocentric view. No, it does not. It absolutely does not. Trust me, I study this shit for a living. It doesn't. And every attempt to try to pin it to that has failed miserably. So no, dude, it does not. And you are taking this very human-focused, human-centric approach to this and trying to feel special in a universe where you're simply not. It's not necessary, it's not relevant, and it's not appropriate in a serious scientific discussion. I encourage you to actually look into what we know about this stuff. Check out NASA's Astrobiology Primer. They just released the 3rd edition. It is the most cited and most robust just glossary, this resource on everything we know so far about where stars come from, where planets come from, where life comes from, and how life evolves. It is an easy read if you're willing to put in the hard work of doing so. It's not an easy read, is what I'm saying, but it's not very difficult. You can get through it, and you can do a lot. You learn a lot, and it's not fucking magic. I just encourage you to actually really try to dig into this. My co-host is done with you, but I would be willing to talk to you again. So if you want to call in sometime when I'm on, I'm hosting tomorrow and I'm hosting next week as well on Sunday. I'd be happy to talk to you about the science of it, but I think we're going to move on to our final calls for today, Steve Frank.
All right, thanks.
Yay. I appreciate you.
Yeah, you literally said, please hang up the phone. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to take this much farther. I would have sat here all night and just been like, that's not what anything is. Absolutely not.
Oh, man. My blood pressure is not doing well with this one.
Wow, that was a great clip we just watched. Hey, Eve, what should the people do now?
Leave a comment, click like, subscribe, patreon.com/ does that say call the line?
Yeah. But if you could have made, we could just make it a little more natural. On the next clip, the outro will be much better.